This is not your video. What you doing? I love you. You're so old. What are you so grumpy for? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, as you guys can see by the title, it is a video that I did not plan on making this week. However, something happened this week. I had an emergency with my electricity, obviously with Butter's tank, as you can see by the title, and I posted it on Instagram that I was having this problem one day, and it was just like a crazy mess in my house. And I had a couple comments requesting for me to document it while I was going through it and make a video. So that is what I did, and that is what you guys will be watching today. So I hope that you enjoy. Bodhi is watching me while I'm filming this, and he looks so mad. Hi, Beefy Bode. He's like... So before I tell you guys what exactly happened and how I fixed the situation and got out of this little mess that we were in with Butter's tank, I first want to tell you guys know I am relatively new to making fish videos on YouTube, so this is not going to be an amazing, all-encompassing what to do in a fish tank emergency when you lose electricity video. This video is just what I did in my experience of being without electricity for about 4 or 5 hours. Also, it is geared towards goldfish, so if you have tropical fish or saltwater fish, what you need to do when your electricity goes out will vary a little bit differently from what I did, so bear that in mind. I am not a fish professional or fish expert by any means. I do not claim to be. I haven't had a goldfish tank in 15 years. You guys know that. I am pretty much just getting back into it. However, one of the things that you know will happen at least once while you own a fish tank is you will lose electricity. It will happen. So if you have a goldfish tank and you do lose electricity, I hope this video helps you. But just remember, this video is geared towards a goldfish tank and on a really beautiful sunny day outside. So if it is a saltwater tank, a tropical tank, and it is a snowstorm, this video may not apply to you. I am so sorry. Okay, so let's get in the video. So if you've ever owned a fish tank, you know that whenever you're doing your research and then you're preparing to get a tank, one of the biggest worries in your mind is for the day that comes where your electricity goes out. So I want to start by telling you guys what happened 2 days ago. So 2 days ago, I was in bed sleeping in the early morning, and I was sleeping real good, and then all of a sudden I hear my fan shut off. Now I am a light sleeper, and obviously I have a fan in my room that's really loud and I can't sleep without it. Me and my husband both, we just love having the fan on. So as soon as the fan shuts off, it wakes us up immediately out of our sleep, almost like an alarm. It's really weird. We're just really used to having that like white noise, I guess. So as soon as the fan shut off, I knew exactly what happened, and I immediately shot up out of bed. As soon as I sat up, I was like, Butter's tank. It was literally the first words out of my mouth. I knew exactly what had happened. Even as sleepy as I was, I knew that somehow, for some reason, the electricity had shut off. And obviously when that happens, as someone who has fish, you have to have emergency measures in place or things that you know that you need to do for when that happens. So of course, I went out into the living room, I looked outside, there was no thunderstorms, it wasn't raining, it wasn't snowing, it was a beautiful day. However, the wind was so powerful and so strong, trees were going every which way, and I immediately knew something had happened, and it was probably the wind. So basically the wind was so strong, it knocked over the telephone pole and it was just laying in the road. It was a mess. But basically, I knew that it was going to be quite a while before we got our electricity back. We heard sirens, we heard the fire trucks, I knew exactly what had happened. But unfortunately, that also meant that it was probably going to be quite a few hours before they would be able to get it fixed. So whenever you lose electricity, there's obviously the few things regarding a fish tank that you have to bear in mind. Obviously, when you lose electricity, not only do you lose your heater, if you have a heater in your tank, but you also lose your filter. So that means that not only do you have filter media that is going to need to be saved, but you also have to make sure that the temperature in your tank stays where it needs to be for the type of fish that you have. So obviously, if you have a tropical tank, you're going to need to find a way to keep that water temperature warm if you're in an environment where it's really, really, really cold or something like that, especially if it's a snowstorm that caused your electricity to go out. However, this particular day, it was in the 70s outside. It was a beautiful day. It even felt really good inside the house, even though we obviously had no electricity. So I knew that temperature-wise, Butter's tank was going to be absolutely fine. It always hovers around 72. Plus, goldfish are really resilient and hardy, so she can handle a little bit of temperature swing. It's not going to hurt her. But the main thing I was worried about was obviously the oxygen in her water, obviously a buildup of possible ammonia, not knowing how long her filter was going to be out, and then of course saving her filter media. You guys know I have a 20-gallon quarantine tank, however, there's no fish in there. So what I did with that tank is I actually just took all the filter media out of the filter and I just dropped it into the tank. Really easy. That's just what I did. It made the tank water kind of mucky. The snails were in there. Honestly, they really don't care, but there's no fish in that tank. So I just threw the filter media right into the water, and that's perfectly fine. You just have to make sure that the filter media doesn't dry out. And I have hang-on back filters. So typically whenever the hang-on back filter shuts off, all of the water rushes out of the filter and the filter media is exposed and it's no longer underwater. That will cause it to dry out and you will lose your filter media, so that's really bad. So I'm about to show you guys exactly what I did for Butter's tank regarding her filter media, because that was obviously the first thing that I wanted to take care of. I knew that I had plenty of time for Butter's water to like need a water change or anything, because the electricity had just gone out. There's no way that it would be high ammonia or anything like that. And I knew that I had time to monitor that, but my main concern was obviously the filter media and then of course oxygen. So I'm sure you're wondering, why don't you have a generator? So first of all, generators are extremely expensive, and I live in Tennessee. So because I'm in the South, we lose electricity very rarely. I mean, it has to be a hard snowstorm or a really, really, really bad thunderstorm typically. Now, if you are someone like King of DIY or something like that, then you have a huge emergency fallback plan, which I know he's made videos on what he does for his fish gallery. He has generators and pumps, and he has like a whole working system. His house literally works for him essentially, because he set it up that way. But for someone like me who has one little Butter and one big tank, obviously I don't have a big generator. Generators are extremely expensive, so typically we rarely lose electricity. I can honestly say we probably lose electricity for a few hours to a day, about 1 to 2 times a year. That's literally it, which I'm really grateful for that. I love Tennessee, I love being in the South, and so it's just not something that we would need a generator year-round for. And obviously if you have a generator that's just sitting year-round and only gets used once or twice a year, then the life of that generator is going to deplete, and honestly they're just so expensive, it really isn't practical. So that's why I did the measures that I'm going to be talking about in this video that worked perfect for Butter. So I obviously made an emergency trip to Walmart, and I'm going to show you really quick what I bought for her oxygen and also for the bucket that I ended up putting her filter media in to keep it going. I'm going to show you guys how I did that, but really quick I also want to show you the aerators that I used to do that. So here is my bag of stuff that I bought from Walmart. It was a lot. I will go on and tell you my total for all of this was $80. So the reason that I hadn't bought all of this stuff previously and just had it on hand is because number one, I've never needed it before. And number two, my brother actually has a couple of these out in our shed with all of his fishing and tackle equipment. Patrick and Matthew, they fish a lot. They're fishermen, you know, that's just how they are. So they have these little bubble boxes like in the shed that they've used for minnows and stuff like that. The only thing I would have to worry about would be to change the air stone and the hosing on it if I needed it for an emergency. But obviously because it was a beautiful day and the weather was perfect, other than it being really windy and we just randomly lost electricity, it was no problem for me just to drive to Walmart and go pick up a few of these bubble boxes, which I'm going to show you. Unfortunately, they are pretty expensive. I got 3 of them, so it was over $80 for 3 of them, along with all of the batteries, all of the hosing, as well as the air stones, which I'm going to show you. So this is what the package looks like. It's literally nothing, it's fine. So here is one of the bubble boxes. It's called a Hush Bubble box. It's by Marine Metal Products, not sponsored, wish I was, obviously. But basically you can see this is what it looks like. It is just a bubble box that you can turn on and you can hear it working. It also has a hook on the back. It's meant to hang on the side of your minnow bucket. You know, like the styrofoam minnow buckets that people use whenever they go fishing. That's typically what it's meant for, but it also hangs on the side of a tank just as well. And then here you can see I actually bought this tubing myself. It does come with an air stone and some tubing inside of here, but the tubing is really, really short. Again, it's meant to only be dropped like 5 inches into a minnow bucket. And obviously Butter's tank is a lot deeper and bigger, so I did buy my own hosing as well as my own air stone. So that is pretty much what it looks like. I did get 3 of them, and I had 1 in Butter's tank and I also had 1 in the filter media. And then of course I bought a backup because these are not like the most well-made things in the entire world, you know what I mean? So the little motors in there can fail, it happens. So I did buy 3 of them, but I did put 1 in Butter's tank as well as in her filter media, and that is what I'm gonna show you guys now. I am in the middle of a power outage right now and it really sucks, but I thought this would be a good opportunity to film what I'm doing right now. since the power is out. Now obviously I already have the setup going on here and here. I thought that I would explain it to you guys. So you guys know, obviously this is my 36-gallon Goldfish tank and I have a little butter in there. So the first thing you need to do, obviously, when you have a power outage is make sure that you try to catch it as soon as possible. And I know that may be kind of hard. I caught it the minute that it went out, but if I wasn't home or if I were, you know, at work or something like that, then it's probably going to be a lot harder to catch. But basically, just being aware of your fish tank and whether or not your filter is properly working or not is really important. So if you have a hang-on back, which I do, the water unfortunately kind of pours out of the hang-on back automatically as soon as the electricity goes out, which really stinks. There are 3 important things that you have to do and have to worry about whenever your electricity goes out if you have a fish tank. Number 1, that is making sure your beneficial bacteria that is in your filter, whether it's a canister, hang-on back, or something like that, that is one thing that you have to worry about, because you don't want your filter media to 1, dry out, and 2, for it to die. So we're gonna go over how to preserve that. You also don't want the ammonia to spike in your tank, so you're gonna wanna be monitoring your water ammonia levels. You can test it every hour. So if you have like an overstocked tank, it's gonna be a lot more problematic. Obviously, I only have butter in here at the moment, so this is very manageable because it's a very large tank. But if the electricity isn't on by probably like the 6-hour mark, I'm gonna start worrying and maybe need to do a water change and stuff like that. That's just me. Some people would go longer, but the 3rd thing you have to worry about is keeping air and oxygen in the water. So that is being produced by this stone here, which we're gonna go over my bubble box and I'll show you it and everything. So the first thing that I did was I came out here. Obviously my filter was off. I knew the electricity was out. But I came out here and I just unplugged my hang-on back filter. If it was a canister filter, make sure you unplug it, and then also be careful, because if the electricity kicks back on after like a day or something, your canister filter media will turn into straight ammonia and it will shoot all that in your tank. So you have to be really, really careful, because canister filters, the rush of ammonia from them after a power outage, if you just left it sitting in the canister, will shoot a ton of ammonia in your tank, and that would be really bad for your fish. So I unplugged the hang-on back and I took all of my filter media out of the hang-on back, and I have it in this bucket here. So you can see here I have all of my filter media in a bucket full of tank water. This is not tap water. So I just took some water out of Butter's tank, put it in this bucket, covered the filter media so that none of it is exposed and can dry out. If it dries out, you lose the entire cycle and you're in a lot of trouble. So we have it in some tank water, and we have a bubbler in here. This is just a power button. They are waterproof. It's meant for boating, for your minnows and stuff if you're going fishing, but I just have it on here obviously for my filter media. Now my sponge, my big sponge, which is a lot of my media too, I just have the little I just have the media rings as well as my carbon pack in here, so that's like half of my filtration. However, you can see in here I have all of my sponges left in here because there's still water in here. So I actually filled this up with tank water above the filter media, and I'm gonna watch it, but for just a couple hours, as long as it's wet, which it is, it can sit in here and it's okay. However, any more than a couple hours, then I will have to take this out and I'll put it into the bucket as well with a aerator. But I'm gonna wait an hour or 2. I'm gonna try my luck on just leaving it in here, hoping the electricity comes back on soon. But if it doesn't, I do have to remove it out of here. So if the power isn't back on really soon, then I am gonna have to take my sponges out of there and put them in the bucket as well. I'll probably do that pretty soon, but they're just so big and so tall, it's really hard to fit them in the bucket. So the second thing I did was obviously put a bubbler inside of Butter's tank. You can see here is my Hush bubbler on the side of Butter's tank. They have a clip on there that you can just clip it on and hang it. And then this is actually tubing, airline tubing that I bought. And then of course I used my own air stone as well. I didn't use the one that it came with. I just don't trust anything in this world. So I'm sure the air stone would have worked fine, but I mean, I don't know. I just didn't want to use any stock tubing or stock air stone. You know what I mean? I wanted to buy my own just so I knew 100% that it was safe and good quality and everything. So I did buy 3 4-packs of D batteries. So I have a ton of batteries left over just in case these were to go out. But I heard that this can run for a day or 2 on 2D batteries. And I don't think we're going to be out of electricity that long. But yeah, this is a really good bubbler, so I don't have to worry about her tank water getting too hot or too cold. It's just room temperature. Another really important thing to remember is make sure you're not feeding your fish. If you have a power outage and you are worrying about your water, obviously with the ammonia levels and everything, because there is nothing to be cycling that out, the bacteria that's in your tank is not going to be enough to cycle out any ammonia that this fish produces. So even though there's bacteria in there, that's going to stay alive, which is good, you're still going to have to do water changes. Luckily, if I have to do a water change, I have a spare tote full of Butter's water down here that's aged already. So if I have to do a water change, it's not a problem. I can. I have plenty of water back up down here. It's really important not to feed your fish during a power outage, because you want your fish to be producing as little waste as possible, especially if you have tropical fish and it's a heated tank. Their metabolisms are going to be a little bit slower because your water levels could be dropping to like room temperature. If it's normally at like 78 and your house is at 71, you know, it's gonna reflect that. So make sure that you are feeding your fish less than you would normally feed them. So I'm not going to be feeding Butter until the power comes back on at minimum. And then if it's been a few days and your temperature has lowered in your tank, so your tropical fish haven't been eating for a few days, once you do get your filter back up and running and the water back heated, you may want to wait a little bit to feed them. This is what I've heard. I've heard aquarium co-ops say that before. So if you do have a tropical tank and once you raise your temperatures back up and they haven't eaten in a couple days, make sure you wait a little bit before you feed them, you know, especially to let your filter media get caught back up and everything from cycling the tank out. So it's just something to remember and to watch. I think Butter's gonna be fine. I am really hoping that the electricity comes back on soon. It's only been out for about an hour and a half now. I just really hope it comes on before too long so I can get her filter media back in there and I don't have to worry about her water. But yeah, I just wanted to document this for you guys, tell you guys what I'm doing. So basically, I have all the filter media out. It is in the bucket except for my foam, which if it doesn't come on in a couple hours, I will be taking all of the media out and putting it in the bucket with an aerator. Also monitoring the ammonia, so test your water every couple hours. If you have a really overstocked tank, you may need to do water changes immediately. I obviously don't have an overstocked tank, so she's gonna be fine. She has oxygen, which is this right here. This is her air stone, just to keep the oxygen in the water for your Butterbean. You such a pretty girl. She's like, I'm unaffected. She doesn't care. She knows Mom will take care of her. But yeah, if I have to do a water change, I will film that for you guys. But yeah, so far, this is pretty much how you survive a power outage with a goldfish tank. So this is the first thing we're gonna put in there. Get a little of the crud off of it. Soak in it for a second. Normally I wouldn't do this but once every couple months, but obviously we had to do this today. You can see this is crud, like poop and stuff in her filter. I'm just going to kind of clean it off a little bit, but she is a huge filter, so it's still okay. It's not clogged or anything like that. Some people don't have carbon in their filter. I leave it in there just as added filter media, but it's not necessary to have. I just put it in there because I use mine. Gonna blow a bunch of the filter media debris in here, but my filter is really powerful. It's a 110, so it will have all of this out of here in about 30 minutes or less. It'll be completely clean. I need to top off Butter's tank to make the water level higher, and then we can also take out her air stone. She doesn't need it anymore. And then this is the old filter media bucket. You can see the filter media was pretty dirty, but now it's rinsed out, obviously. And then we're gonna turn off this and we're done with this one. So to top off her tank, I just use her aged water. I just fill up a few bucketfuls and then I prime it and we'll just put it in her tank, and that's all I really have to do for her. Obviously the water looks a little murky because of all the filter media that I had to move around, which does stink. It is a little bit murky, no doubt, but it will clear up really soon. If you have a canister filter and you're restarting it, don't forget that that is going to be heavy ammonia if your canister filter was sitting for a really long time, but I don't have a canister filter and it was only a few hours, so this should not be strong ammonia at all. I am going to test the water anyway, but like I said, it was only about 4 or so hours, so it should be fine. Alright guys, so here we are. This is the next day after the power outage. This is the follow-up to show you guys what you need to do for the following hours and next day after a power outage. You want to make sure that you're checking your water. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is really yellow, which is good. That means 0 ammonia, and this is the next day, so that means that I didn't lose her filter media. So yeah, she's doing really good, but this is just to show you need to follow up the next day, make sure the filter's running, make sure your media is clean, and the ammonia is 0. So that is pretty much how I took care of butter. I know it probably seems pretty simple, but it is really important steps that you need to take. Hi.
Sorry, I'll tell you about it.
It's okay. I love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Be careful. Did you sleep good?
Yeah.
Love you.
Love you.
Where was I? Oh, okay. And also, it's really important, like I said in the clip that you just saw, to make sure that you watch your water levels. The longer your tank water sits with your fish without a filter to be pulling that ammonia, the higher your ammonia levels can get, and you may need to do regular water changes. So it's really important to watch that. With my tank being extremely understocked because I only have butter, also her tank is pretty large. I was only without electricity for between 4 and 5 hours. I didn't have to do a water change. Butter was perfectly fine. However, if you have a severely overstocked tank, like a Goldfish tank, because they are massive waste producers, you may want to do water changes. You're going to have to judge that for yourself, but that is really important to note. As well as I had a ton of people comment on the picture that I posted on Instagram where I told you guys we were in emergency butter mode because we were out of electricity that day. A ton of people suggest that I move to a sponge filter instead of my hang-on back, because if you lose electricity, you can literally hook your sponge filter up to one of the aerators that I showed you, and you can actually run your sponge filter, which is amazing. I didn't realize that you could do that. That's so cool. Which, I mean, it makes sense to me thinking about it now, and I even had someone say that you can buy them through Aquarium Co-op. I don't know if that's true. I haven't looked at his website for them. And also, I don't personally use a sponge filter for my Goldfish tank. I love my hang-on backs. I really do. So if you don't have a hang-on back and you use a sponge filter, that may make things a lot easier for you if you happen to lose electricity. So I would definitely suggest that and researching it for yourself. All right, guys, this video is getting really long, but I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that this helped you out, and I'm glad that I was able to show you guys what I did. So thank you to the person who suggested it on my Instagram. I did document it, and I hope that this was helpful to you. Butter is doing amazing. She is thriving as usual, and she is going to be getting a new friend very soon. Also, remember, this video is documenting my experience of losing electricity for 1 day with a Goldfish tank. So if you have much worse conditions like snowstorms and a saltwater tank and tropical tanks and things like that, there are a lot more things that you can do, and there are tons of resources online. This was just my experience, but I do hope that it was helpful to you, and thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I will see you guys in my next video. Be kind. Bye.